Kevin VanOrd, you were here last week to show us Dark Souls 2.
I was, and I could only show stuff from the first hour of the game.
It was great. We got to ask you super vague questions that you could not respond to.
Yeah, totally. I can now hopefully respond to more, although I want to be careful. I don't want to be too spoilery.
Okay.
But I do want to give this warning. Dark Souls is all about discovery, right? And so you are going to be seeing something that's later in the game. I chose something specifically that's rather Dark Soulsy, so it doesn't come across as like too, oh my god, I can't believe I'm seeing that. But
so,
for what it's worth, if if you're kind of sensitive about this stuff.
Stop pushing our viewers away, man.
Stay and watch.
Video games. Dark Souls 2. What's going on here?
So this
just hanging out by a fire.
Outside, yeah, this is a bonfire.
Making
I'm standing outside Aldia's Keep. Now this is the PlayStation 3 version. This is also a debug version, so I'm not online, but I wanted to go in here at this later time.
Cool. To
show off, so I won't have online functionality, but I did kind of want to see. So here we go.
Why are you glowing?
Yeah, what's your kit about?
I'm glowing because I have, I'll show people my setup if they want to see. So I've got some rings on that make me glow. The ring of binding, I've got bling on. This limits my HP reduction when hollow. So every time you die, you go a little bit more hollow. You lose maximum health, and that limits that. Ring of Blades, which is for attack. This is the glow, the Ring of Restoration, and this this gradually restores my HP, and then I'm protected from physical attacks.
How many rings can you wear? Because it really irritates me in Skyrim that I can wear like one ring. I've got like 10 fingers. Like why can't I wear all of these buffs all the time?
It's only made for your left thumb.
4 rings.
All the craftsmen in the land can only manage one finger.
It's actually a Prince Albert ring.
I never figured out what's actually in these wagons that makes them go like that.
What?
It's either something
like
awful or there's like a couple doing it in there.
Okay.
So...
Yeah, well, given the choice between something terrible and awful and people joined in an intimate congress,
I'm going with
an
the
act of
thing
love.
that's awful.
Yeah, it
I would assume
or
something awful.
maybe it's two awful things boning. And they're made of bones, and one of them doesn't have a head.
This makes sense that they would be made of bones because we are walking into this place.
That's pretty cool.
Oh wow!
Awesome skeleton.
Oh no!
Hi.
It's a poison frog. It's the those things.
It looks like a curse frog, but actually he's a petrify frog now.
Oh man.
Ooh.
So yeah.
Dark Souls 2, everybody, reinventing the wheel. Just kidding.
It's one of the few, like it is one of those things. So you come in here, and first time this happened to me,
That's kind of freaky.
Totally freaked out.
That thing's busted out of the mirror. Ooh.
Luckily, my fire bastard sword will help me out.
Pretty strong.
It's a family show, Kevin VanOrd. If you have any questions for Kevin, by the way, about Dark Souls 2, please send us in a tweet or comment on the GameSpot page or in the Twitch chat. I also want to remind folks, or tell folks, we're going to show them off in just a little bit after Kevin's done playing this video game. We got a bunch of copies of Dark Souls 2 to give away on both Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Incredibly awesome versions, the Black Armor Edition and the Collector's Edition, so stay tuned for some information on how to win those real soon.
Oh yeah, these are the like steel case ones.
Yeah.
They look real cool.
Yeah, they mail better as well. That's why we got them. So, Kevin.
Yes.
Dark Souls 2. This is looking very familiar to another game that was called Dark Souls, didn't have 2. Can you just give me sort of a brief summary of how you think this game is better or worse than the previous one?
Well, there are some subtle additions that really make a big difference. Some of that's... The game is a lot more about exploration. It's rather large. It's much bigger than Dark Souls. And it has some changes designed to get you out there. So for example, if you've spawned in an area long enough, monsters will stop respawning. But not necessarily all monsters, and they don't suddenly start doing it all at once. But they will get phased out over time. So there are fewer monsters through here than when I first came through.
So you're not repeatedly facing the full strength, repeated enemy deployments that you would in Dark Souls.
Now at first, I didn't know if I was really much of a fan of that.
What?
This is a giant frog!
I just love how there seems to be no rhyme or reason to the creature design in this game. It's just like, yeah, sure, got this frog, we're gonna make his eyes as big as massive testicles on his face. Done.
Or
Ship it.
They're eyeballs, Danny.
Are they?
Not all spheres are testicles.
Are they?
Well, I don't know, actually. I haven't played the game.
Have you asked From Software?
But worth noting, Kevin, you gave it a 9 out of 10.
I did. I think it's awesome.
Fantastic game. Yes. So, like, not a lesser, or is it like, so for people who are like so into Souls games, they're gonna love it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'm back and forth. Somebody asked me on Twitter, how I would rank the Souls games between Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Dark Souls 2. I don't know. Like sometimes my feelings on that changes by the day. I think it's hard to top Dark Souls. Oh my God, it's really dark.
It's right there in the name.
It's called Dark Souls.
This TV is like suddenly it was not like this before. What has happened?
It's almost like you've never played a game on the show before.
I know. I came in earlier to make sure, and now suddenly it's like.
You can do it. I believe in you. Cast a light spell. I've got a question here. Bob Jones, 1980 asks,
Vandalism.
Does Dark Souls 2 integrate with any of the save games from the first game? Is there any sort of...
Not that I'm aware of. There could be something. If there is, it's subtle. I haven't noticed anything starting in on retail from my save game.
Who's this dude?
This is...
You've killed so many of them, you can't even tell
I don't
what
remember
they
the
are
names
anymore.
of the enemies. I really only know the names of the bosses, really.
Yeah, I mean, because the enemies' names don't really display.
No, they
It's
don't
just like,
display.
oh, it was that horrible robed thing. Oh yeah, it's a curse frog because it curses you.
Well, that's what I always called them in Dark Souls, was
Yeah.
a curse frog. Now they're petrify frogs, like I said. You gotta stay out of the smoke.
How long did it take you to complete the game?
80 hours?
And was that because was that a review completion where you wanted to make sure you saw everything, or was that kind of...
Oh,
just how
there you go.
felt
You
about
wanted
it?
death? You got death.
You
Well, that
died.
dude barely even touched you. Oh wait, it's Dark
One
Souls.
swipe of its tail, and I was down. I usually go through a door over on the right, and I forgot, because I'm not very good at playing games and talking at the same time.
You're doing all right.
So-
So, honestly,
we
if
get
you
you
were
on the
playing
show.
Dark Souls 2 and you didn't perish,
That would be sort of disappointing,
yeah,
right?
I would be like, no one likes a show off, Kevin. Come on.
Were you?
I mean, I do like a show
Were you
off.
dying as much as you were in the first game? Is this still?
Oh
as
yeah, I
difficult, or-
think I died maybe not quite as much. Well, maybe as much because it's bigger. There are more chances, like there's more geography to cover. So maybe, but I think that individual bosses in Dark Souls were probably a little harder than individual bosses in Dark Souls 2.
Last week as well, you showed us one of the areas that was sort of didn't look like the quintessential Dark Souls 1 environment, where it was quite bright and gorgeous.
Right.
And you also put up an article with a bunch of screenshots from the game, just kind of looking through.
It's not up yet, but it will be
okay.
going up tomorrow.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Do you think the environments in this game is there much of a difference in terms of the scale or in terms of the aesthetic?
I think there's it still has the same aesthetic, clearly. It's still Dark Souls, as it were, and so it still goes for the same. But I'd say that the diversity is much greater. There's a lot. You still go through forests and castles and things like that. But I would say in general, you see a lot more diversity in terms of the geography, in terms of the art style, sort of in terms of the color palette. There's a lot of stuff. Now, I really want to get my souls back because I had.
You can do
I was
it.
close to like 18,000 souls or something, right?
pretty decent
Something
amount
like
of
that.
souls.
Not bad. I mean, but by the time, because this character is level 141, 142.
Seems
So
large.
it's big. So at this point, it doesn't really. But this is where I meant to go in before.
Cara Bear on Twitter asks, would you say that the max HP loss at deaths is a good addition or not so much? Does it make it unnecessarily harder?
No, I think that there were tweaks to sort of how it deals with difficulty.
Yeah.
Like, there's less of that grindy feel because you don't have to necessarily fight every single enemy each time you go through an area. But on the other hand, there are certain tweaks like I'll see if I can do this. If I run out of stamina, I'll run out of stamina now, and then oops, too late. But if you run out of stamina and you get hit, you get knocked back for a short while.
Stagger.
Yeah, there's a stagger there, and okay, now that is something different.
That's-
But luckily I have some pyromancy, so that is actually some acid.
Throw some Molotovs at it.
I'm a pyromancer.
Oh, Dark Souls. Gotcha.
So
Yeah.
I can take care of him, but that's pretty nasty stuff there. The acid stuff, because it'll degrade your weapons, and some of the rings are pretty prone to breaking. So it's best to stay out of that stuff, because now stuff breaks down, but as long as it doesn't break down fully before you rest at a bonfire, it just refreshes at the bonfire.
Oh, okay.
Now this is
The thing that killed you
Oh,
in
yeah,
like one hit.
that's a pretty big thing. You want to get out of there, maybe, Kevin?
Ooh, nasty.
I don't know.
and he'll also roll over on me, and there's a lot of physics-enabled junk all around me.
Does it work
Oh
well?
no!
Does the combat system with all the?
And I feel like you're in a real tight spot.
Oh, you're
And I'm done.
You're gonna
He's
get
gonna
murdered
eat
hard.
you.
He
bleeding.
eats me, and I'm done.
Oh my god! Oh, that was good.
Now, you did see at the end there's a bleeding effect.
Yeah.
So the bleeding effect, if it succeeds, it lowers your maximum stamina for
Yeah.
a time. But luckily, it's only a temporary effect.
I have a question about
Sure.
Dark Souls 2, Kevin, because I played a bunch of Dark Souls, but I didn't get very far. And I was trying to play this like class where I was like nimble and would roll and like try to backstab people a lot. But then people who got really far in that game seemed a lot of them be playing like pyromancers or something like that. So like using magic was something I didn't quite do. So like when you choose your class from the get-go here, is it better to choose a certain class or two? Like, are you making it harder for yourself if you choose the knight or the the bandit or whatever?
In the past, mages and magic were considered sort of like easy mode in Dark Souls, and I think that's still true to a small extent. I do think that when you have ranged stuff, that can help. But I've actually found that things that I did in Dark Souls to kind of ease my way don't work as much here.
Oh.
Sometimes that's because there's certain enemies that are just really fast. They close in so fast that, once you get their attention, you're screwed. Sometimes you're in small spaces and it's not going to really help. But I think archery is a lot more fun now. There are fewer chances to sort of cheese large enemies from a distance by just pelting them with 7,000 arrows until they die. But there are great opportunities now to use archery. You can zoom in, you can aim with a crossbow, which you couldn't do before. So I think that archery is now a viable option.
So if it's better and viable, does that still mean it's good?
We actually
is
have a
good.
question here on the screen from Erebuster on Twitter asks, what class do you recommend to start with in Dark Souls 2? So if you were just starting off, maybe first time.
I think I am playing as a knight, and you start at like level 13 automatically or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Check when you load it up, make sure, because I might be confusing knight with warrior. But I think that's a great place to start. And keep in mind that the class that you choose only really changes like what you start as and a few additional things like what items you have and equipment you have. But you can level up as you choose. You can do pretty much anything.
Awesome.
So it's not as though I started with pyromancy.
Kevin, thank you very much for coming on and showing us Dark Souls 2. Your review is up on the side, of course. Everyone go read that now.